For this problem, we're asked to solve the equation by completing the square. Okay, so the point of completing the square is to get the equation down to the point where you have some expression squared equals a single value. And then you just get rid of the square by taking plus or minus the square root of both sides. Now, the work here is getting this equation into the form some expression squared equals a single value. And we know the steps for doing this. Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do is get the x squared and x terms alone on one side of the equation. So we're just going to move the 1 over here we added 1 to both sides to move it over to the right. Therefore, we have the x squared and the x terms alone on one side. The next thing we'll do is eliminate the coefficient of x squared, and we do that by dividing both sides of the equation by that coefficient of x squared. The coefficient that's multiplying x squared is the number 2. So we're going to get rid of it, but what we have to do is we have to factor it. This is a good way to do it so that we'll be honest and make sure to divide the entire side by 2. We can factor the 2 out of the left side first, the coefficient of x squared, and then we'll divide by both sides by 2. So factoring out the value 2, we're left with 2 parentheses x squared minus 2x parentheses equals 1. Now we're ready to divide both sides by 2, and that will have eliminated the coefficient on the x squared. So divide both sides by 2, and that's going to cancel with the 2 upstairs. And we get x squared minus 2x equals the right side, 1 over 2. The next thing we'll do is we'll simplify inside, let's see. First we're going to do this step where we're going to add bracket 1/2, the coefficient that's multiplying x, and then square it. We're going to add that to both sides. The coefficient that's multiplying x is negative 2. You can see it right there. So write down x squared minus 2x, the left side. Now add bracket 1/2 times the coefficient of x. Close your bracket and square it. Do the same thing to the other side. Next step, we're going to simplify inside the brackets only. Half of negative 2 is negative 1. Okay, we're ready now to factor the left-hand side using the formula that you're all aware of. It's, if I could just quote it, it is a squared minus 2ab plus b squared is equal to a minus b parentheses squared. Okay, now another way of saying that, another way of doing that in your head is factor the left-hand side by writing parentheses x plus whatever's in the bracket, including the sign. Now, in the bracket, we have a negative 1, so we added a negative 1 inside the parenthesis and square that. Now, you see, that is x plus a number that's in the bracket, including the sign, close your parenthesis, and square it. That's the same as applying the formula that I just quoted for you. On the right-hand side, we just need to simplify a little bit. Negative 1 to the second power is positive 1. And now we need to add 1/2 plus 1. That's the same as adding 1/2 plus 2 over 2. That gives you 3 over 2. All right, now we're ready. We've got it to the point where we have completed the square. We have an expression squared equals a single value. So now we're ready to get rid of the square by taking plus or minus the square root of both sides. X minus 1 equals plus or minus the square root of 3 over 2. And then we're going to finish up by isolating x. Add 1 to both sides to isolate the x. We get x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 3 over 2. Now you can write this in different forms, and the answer is correct either way. You can go ahead and simplify it, rationalize the denominator, whatever you choose to do. These answers are equivalent, and you're equally right if you choose any of these 3 answers on an exam. Okay, so either one will do. Okay, it's time for you to try it. 2x squared minus 3x equals 4. I want you to solve this equation by completing the square. So freeze the video, come back, and see if you got it correct. Okay, you're back. The solution is, let's go through it real quick. We're going to add half the coefficient well, first we eliminated, you go through all the steps that I went through. Get rid of the coefficient of x squared, and then add half the coefficient of the x squared to both sides. Okay, now factor the left-hand side. Simplify. You're going to have to simplify that right-hand side. Okay, and then let's see. Okay, now we've got a single fraction on the other side. All right, now we're ready to get rid of the square by taking plus or minus the square root of both sides, and then write your answer in any form that's appropriate. So there's my answer, and I hope you got a similar answer to that. It could be in a different form, but it's the same solution I'm looking for.